Hello and welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. As California burns, well, someone's got to go in to save it. Thank God Freedom Fest is in Palm Springs, California this year. If you would like to join me, I'm going to be emceeing the whole thing starting tomorrow. And the festival goes through Saturday, June 14th. So hopefully you will be able to come out to Palm Springs. If you're in the area or you're feeling spontaneous, I would love to see you. And you can let me know that you heard about it on Kennedy Saves the World. Come up and high-five me. If you go to freedomfest.com now, you can get $100 off a full pass ticket. It's not going to work for day passes, but if you go to freedomfest.com and put in Kennedy 100, you get $100 off. And I would love to party with you. And I would love to hear your ideas of freedom and where it's lacking in your life, in your community, and what you think we could do better together to save it. Because California is in desperate need of freedom. You heard me talking about it with Jimmy Fallon. You know, it's like, I know I've talked about it on the show, like, I lived through the riots. A lot of people did. A lot of people lived through the terror and the pain and the rebuilding, and California ebbs and flows. And right now it's in a flow, and it absolutely sucks. Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and all the other career politicians in California are an absolute abomination, and they are antithetical to freedom. The problem is, it's not that everyone else who doesn't live in California is fine. The problem is that Gavin Newsom wants to take his brand of politics, which, you know, leave him with no accountability. He doesn't really ever have to do anything. He can just blame everyone else and talk about himself. Well, that's no way to run a state. It's certainly no way to run a country. This guy wants to run for president in 2028. He's doing a horrible job. So I know California has always prided itself on being a sanctuary state. But you can't be a sanctuary state and offer sanctuary to really bad people because they ruin communities. And that's why people are so upset. And as rational people are watching the news coverage of California burning, they're like, yeah, this really isn't Donald Trump's fault. Like, you can say whatever you want about him. You can disagree with his politics. But the reaction to this, the cause of this, not necessarily Donald Trump. And, you know, you may think that ICE is overstepping its bounds. It may put terror into the hearts of good, hardworking people who don't want their friends and neighbors and family members rounded up and sent back to countries that they might not have ever stepped foot in. And I understand that, but that is not what this is about. The reaction, the vandalism, shutting down the 101, all of it is the overreaction that comes from politicians who don't want to do anything about a really tough situation, which is where California has forced itself into a corner with immigration, because they don't want to do the hard work of keeping the good people in and making sure the bad people get the hell out of there. And that's what people have demanded from San Francisco to Los Angeles and all the counties and cities in between, all the way to San Diego, all the way to the border with Mexico. They want to make sure that the bad people who do the most damage, the recidivist criminals who truly want to harm children and innocent people, that they get them out of the state, because their actions are an absolute virus that metastasizes when political leaders are addicted to inaction. Join us for a live Kennedy Saves the World podcast on Thursday, June 19th at Langan's on 47th Street right here in New York City. We're going to kick off your summer with special guests Jimmy Fallon, Emily Compagno, and many more. You got to be there June 19th, 3 p.m. for a special Kennedy Saves the World. I said this yesterday on the podcast with Jimmy. Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass are literally just using this chaos as a distraction so people don't look at the abhorrent job they're not doing in terms of the wildfires and getting people permits and getting lots cleared and getting insurance companies to get off their cruel asses and fulfill the policies that people have paid for years and years and years. Insurance is already expensive, so when you lose everything or your home is uninhabitable, you think the insurance company is going to be there to say, oh, you have to throw away all of your stuff? Well, here's what it's worth. And, you know, we are going to fulfill our end of the policy. They are not doing that. And guess who's not making them? Gavin Newsom. And all of the politicians there who, like Kamala Harris, she can sit this one out. And her words, her ineptitude are reason enough to never vote for her for governor. She would be a horrible governor. She is a horrible executive. She cannot put a coherent sentence together, let alone put a plan together to save a state. She's not interested in that. She also wants to be president, and she thinks if she takes this little sabbatical to becoming governor of California, that somehow puts her back on top of the presidential podium. That is not going to happen. It is unacceptable. These people have to be run out of office, and they have to actually do something and have difficult conversations and allow their law enforcement to enforce the laws instead of just flouting them and then blaming a convenient boogeyman who is Donald Trump. And this back and forth is it's useless, it's toxic, it's unhelpful. It's not going to do anything to get the state back on track. It certainly is not going to do anything to get people back into their non-existent homes. So I hope they do a little better job of refocusing and focusing on freedom. Because when you force people to live with your bad choices, that is the opposite of freedom. That is a level of narcissistic authoritarianism that I think a lot of people didn't think they would see in their lifetime. And a lot of people are in an abusive relationship with politicians in the state of California, and they just want to get out of them. So California is inviting people to leave. You should invite people to stay. You should enforce the laws that you have and make sure that if the federal government isn't doing a good job of vetting people, that the state of California is. And the state of California grows a pair so they can finally admit that there are good people in the world and there are bad people in the world. And the bad people in the world who do bad things have no place in that state, especially when they're there just to burn it to the ground. That's why you got to join me at Freedom Fest, because we have to talk about these things. We can also talk about the intersections and the issues where we disagree. And that is okay, because not everyone has to be the same kind of libertarian. Not everyone has to be the same kind of conservative. But everyone has to fight for their own freedom, and what better way to do it than going to Freedom Fest and joining me there tomorrow through Saturday. freedomfest.com, Kennedy 100. Get yourself $100 off a pass for the entire bonanza. And tomorrow night, I'm going to be interviewing Adam Carolla on the main stage. And you better believe he's going to have a thing or two to say about what's happening in California right now. You know it's going to be brilliant. You know it's going to be funny. And you know, ultimately, it will be the best thing for your freedom. This has been Kennedy Saves the World. I'm Kennedy.
Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.
Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.